Hey, today we are converting our baked potato with cheese recipe from traditional format to graphic format. So let's see if we can. So here we see it in graphic format. I'm sorry, excuse me. Here we see it in traditional format, and you're going to convert it to graphic format. Now, since this is the first conversion to graphic format, I've gone ahead and made the boxes for you. So all you have to do is fill in the ingredients and the procedure in the right spot. Seems pretty easy, right? Well, it is pretty easy if you follow my step-by-step instructions. If you don't, it can be very difficult. So let's first make sure that we have a title. Here's our graphic recipe with the boxes. And I filled in a few things for you. I put in a letter there, a number there, a step there, just to help clarify a few areas that might get difficult. So we already have our title, and I've broken it down into two separate recipes, a baked potato recipe and a cheese sauce recipe. It's just the way I did it. I don't know that that's better that way. It just seems like it would make it a little bit less confusing. All right. So baked potatoes with cheese sauce. Now I want you to know this is something I used to do in class, and we would make 6 baked potatoes in this cheese sauce. Because you're making it at home, I cut the recipe in half. But you can double it if you want to make potatoes for your whole family and enough sauce to do that. You can double it. So right now, as it sits, it yields 3. So here's your ingredients. Now remember, in a graphic recipe, ingredients go on the left, procedures on the right. So here we have 1, 2, 3 boxes. There's one line that separates the ingredients from the procedures, and there's 3 boxes because there are 3 ingredients. So I'm just going to go up here to my first ingredient, copy it, Control C, paste it in that box. There we go. And our second ingredient. Now, some people ask me, why does it say capital T? What does that mean? Well, a capital T, Control C. Capital T is, Control V, a tablespoon. A lowercase t is a teaspoon. Just think of it this way. Capital T is big, like a table is big. It's a big thing. Table. This computer right here, this Chromebook, is sitting on a table. So it's a big item. So that's why it's abbreviated with a capital T. A teaspoon, think of a cup of tea, it sits on a table. So it's smaller. So we use a lowercase t for teaspoon, an uppercase T for tablespoon. Now, you don't see it like that all the time, but I wanted to expose you to it because you might come across a recipe written by hand or whatever that says a capital T and they mean tablespoon. So you'll see it either way. In this recipe, we've got it written both ways. So here we have our ingredients, and I'm not going to do the third ingredient because I think you can do that on your own. I don't want to do everything for you. Now we can move to procedure. Now, right here, even before we start a procedure, is a pre-step. Preheat oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to highlight that. Control C for copy. And I'm going to put it here. Control V. Oh, I have 2 P's in my preheat. There we go. Preheat oven to 400 degrees. Now I got my pre-step. Now, what I recommend to you to make everything a little bit easier is to number your steps. I already put 3 there for you, so this step right here must be 1. You got it. 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. Let's see if there's 5 steps. on our potatoes? Yes, there's 5 steps. So all you have to do is copy and paste step 1, Control C, and place it in here where there's a number 1, Control V. And the same for each of the other 4 steps. Now, there is one other thing that you need to pay close attention to, otherwise it will get sent back. One of the purposes of a graphic recipe is to reduce some of the words. So we have replaced some of the words with boxes. Here's an example. We're not going to say take 1 to 3 potatoes and wash and dry potatoes, because this box tells us what we're washing and drying. So we're going to delete the words potatoes, because unless we specifically need to specify which ingredient we're dealing with, in other words, we have 2 items, one goes in the other, or there's a specific way that's not really clear, we don't need to specify the name of the ingredient again. So all we're going to do is put wash and dry there. That's step 1. What are we going to wash and dry? Whatever's in the box next to it. That's how we know. So step 2, after drying, coat potatoes in oil. I'll go ahead and do that too. Control C. Come down here. Control V. Now, I don't need to restate potatoes because obviously we're dealing with potatoes here, but we've got an additional ingredient. So we can do this. Come on. We don't need the word potatoes anymore. We can just say, after drying, coat. What are we going to coat? We're going to coat the potatoes in oil. Okay. Step 3. Sprinkle kosher salt on potatoes. Oops, let's copy that. Now, some of you will have to watch this video repeatedly, and that's okay. That's one reason, Control C, I've made a video so that you can watch it step by step and go back and watch it again if you need to. Now, obviously, I didn't put it in here, but your kosher salt is going to go right there. But our step 3 is going to go here. Control V, sprinkle kosher salt on potatoes. Do I need the word kosher salt since it's going to be right here? No. Do I need potatoes? No. All it should say there is sprinkle on. Now my steps 4 and 5 for my potatoes are here. Okay. Moving on to cheese sauce. Over here on the left, we have our, let's do this. You don't have to do it, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to center that. So I'm going to go up here, put it in center. It just looks better. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ingredients on the cheese sauce. Let's see if that matches up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I know what it was. I forgot. There's 4 ingredients here, but our potato is an ingredient. So there's 4 plus the potato. That's why I went ahead and put baked potato in there for you. So here's spots for 1, 2, 3, 4 ingredients. So let's get some of these ingredients. Our first ingredient is a tablespoon of butter or margarine. Oops. Tablespoon of butter or margarine. Now here, Control C, I've used the abbreviation TBSP to abbreviate tablespoon. So we're going to put our cursor right there, Control V. Boom. Now it's going to adjust. It's going to make more space in the boxes as you put in bigger sentences. But that's okay. I've gone through this whole thing before, and it should come out just about right when we're done. All right, so I'm going to put my 1 tablespoon of butter and margarine, my first ingredient, my second ingredient, my third ingredient, my fourth ingredient, plus a baked potato, put my ingredients there. Now I recommend you number your steps just to keep everything straight. So between step 2 and step 4 is step 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay? Do that first, and it makes life a lot easier. All right, here we have remove your hot potatoes from the oven and set aside. I'm going to go ahead and copy that sentence, Control C, put it here, Control V. Now, do I need the word hot potatoes there? No. I'm just going to say remove from oven and set aside, because one of the purposes of the graphic recipe is to eliminate words. How do we know what we're removing from the oven? Because it's in the box next to it. It's almost like an arrow pointing. It is an arrow. It's a structured way of saying this goes with this because they're next to each other. And these two are going to go with these two because they're next to each other. And each of your steps go in the blanks here, after you've numbered it, of course. And then, again, you're going to want to delete milk, because milk is going to be in your ingredients list. So you're not going to say, here's milk, add milk. We're going to say, here's milk, add it. Okay, and I recommend that you go back and look at recipe worksheet and French toast graphic and salsa graphic to get sort of an example to look at while you're doing this if you're having trouble grasping it, because they're already in graphic format. This one you're putting in graphic format. So that should be all there is to it. Make sure you have all your steps and make sure you clear out those words that are already listed. A couple things though. This word right here, R-O-U-X, there's always someone that says, what's a roux? Well, it's a French word, so the X is silent and it's pronounced roux. Kind of like in Winnie the Pooh, there's Kanga and roux. So that's what it sounds like. It's a roux. So a roux is equal parts fat and flour that are mixed together and cooked, and they're a thickening agent. Thickening agent makes your sauce or gravy thick. So when we have flour and fat, so here's our flour, here's our fat, here's our flour. Once we cook those together or mix them together and start to cook them, that's a roux. So that's what this is referring to. Okay, it says cook roux 1 minute after it bubbles. You're not going to say cook roux 1 minute after it bubbles. You can just say cook 1 minute after it bubbles. You don't need to restate what it is you're working with. Okay. Then the other word is bechamel. And a bechamel is a roux when we add milk. It's also known as a basic white sauce. And it's the beginnings of our cheese sauce here, but it's also the beginnings of lots of gravies and sauces. It's basically thickened milk. And we thicken it with our thickening agent, which is really it's flour. But if we just dumped flour into our milk, it would not thicken it. It would just make floury lumps. in our milk. So in order to prevent the flour from lumping, we cook it with a fat. And there's a scientific reason for that. I'm not going to go into it, but it makes the flour a thickening agent without causing lumps. Uh, Sometimes lumps still occur, but it works a lot better than just trying to dump flour into milk or into your sauce. So we start with the roux, which is equal parts. It's always equal parts. So you'll notice here we have a tablespoon of butter and a tablespoon of flour. Those are equal parts. And it's not always butter or margarine. Sometimes it's bacon grease. Sometimes it's vegetable oil. It can be chicken grease. It can be any kind of fat that you want for flavor. But they're equal parts and they're cooked together. And again, that's called a roux, equal parts fat and flour, and it's used to thicken our sauce. Once we have a roux and it cooks a little bit, we need to cook it, otherwise it has a pasty taste. We cook it a little bit, not too much. We don't want to burn it, just enough to make the pasty taste go away. Once we add milk, we have what's called a bechamel. And a bechamel is also known as a basic white sauce. So when we get to step 7, stir cheese into bechamel, which is going to be right here. Here's your cheese, going to be right there. And we're going to stir it into, well, we've already made a bechamel, but we're not going to say stir cheese into bechamel. We're going to say stir in. What are we going to stir in? Whatever's at the bottom of this box, which will be our cheese, and we're going to stir it into whatever's there. All right, that should be enough to get you going on this. Once you're done, go ahead and submit it. I think that's all there is to it.